Are you someone who cares deeply about your characters and the arcs you want to take them on? Do you seek depth and greater clarity when it comes to character arcs? I know I did. Once I realized that stories aren't about what happens so much as they are how what happens affects the characters and how they respond to what happens, I ended up studying character writing and character arcs in greater detail. I learned a lot, but I found just knowing about positive, flat, and negative character arcs wasn't enough for me. And if that isn't enough for you, I have just the thing for you: internal genres. This is a little something I picked up from the book Story Grid. Think of internal genres as the different genres of character arcs. This is important because, on the outside, a hero might be trying to save someone or stop a villain, but on the inside, the reason can vary. That's where this knowledge can come in handy. And hey, if you can find the type of internal genre you're writing, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Keep this in mind with any of your casts. The first of the three internal genres are the worldview variants. These are stories about how a character ends up seeing the world differently. There are 4 subgenres in this sort. 1. Education stories. These are about learning that life has a purpose when you once thought it didn't. I'll point to Kung Fu Panda as a great example of this, with Po going from feeling worthless to learning to embrace who he is. 2. Maturation stories. Growing up and understanding the world better. I'm going to point to Chainsaw Man for this example, as Stingy's evolution from someone who is immature to better understanding topics like relationships is a continuous thing as the story goes on. 3. Revelation stories. Discovering a big secret or truth you didn't know before. I'll point to Gravity Fall with this, as it's about going from ignorance about what's going on around them to discovering the truth about their family and so much more. 4. Disillusionment stories. Realizing something you believed isn't as great as you thought. Fate Zero is a great example of this for multiple characters, though Kiritsugu is the centerpiece example. He enters the Grail War with his dream of achieving world peace and being a hero. He ends it destroying the Holy Grail, realizing that it's a threat to everybody before settling down. If you're writing any of these, I recommend the following. 1. Choose a strong inciting incident. The event that triggers the protagonist's journey should challenge their existing worldview. 2. Contrast the beginning and the end. Make sure the perception at the start is markedly different from the end. The contrast underscores their growth. 3. Use support characters. These characters can represent different worldviews, helping the protagonist question and evolve their own perspective. If the story isn't about their evolving worldview, you can center it around their morality. If you wish to focus on your character's morality, here are the 3 variants you can focus on. 1. Punitive stories. A character goes bad and is ultimately punished for it. Breaking Bad is a perfect example of this, given Walter White's transformation into Heisenberg. 2. Redemptive stories. A bad guy reforms. I imagine most minds go to Zuko's character arc in Avatar: The Last Airbender here. 3. Testing stories. These are stories where one's willpower faces off against temptation. I talked about this a bit in the Flat Arcs episode. I'll use the classic example of Batman vs. the Joker here. If you are writing these, first, I recommend establishing a clear moral framework. Define what's considered good and bad within your story's world. Once you have, challenge the protagonist by giving them all kinds of situations that allow them to showcase who they are. This works best with dilemmas and opportunities. Finally, consequences are key in these types of stories. They reinforce the importance of the moral journey. The last internal genre is stories of status, changes in social position. There are 4 subgenres in all you can turn to here. 1. Pathetic stories. A weak protagonist tries to rise and fails. While I'm aware from some research that there is a positive character growth as he goes on, this is what the series Watamote was doing early on. The protagonist attempted to achieve popularity and social success, failed, and ended up in an embarrassing or miserable situation because of it. 2. Sentimental stories. In this case, a weak character succeeds against all odds. I'm going to point to history's strongest disciple, Kenichi. It's made clear how weak he is at the beginning, with it even noted that he has no natural talent in martial arts. At the end, hard work transforms him into a master. 3. Tragic stories. Someone striving for something makes a mistake that dooms him to failure. The iconic example here is Anakin's story arc throughout the Star Wars prequels. He's the chosen one who is meant to destroy the Sith, but instead turns to them due to his belief that he'd find a way to save Padme with it. He's ultimately the cause of Padme's death and loses his own identity as he becomes Darth Vader. And finally, 4. Admiration stories. In this case, a principled person rises without compromising who they are. I'm going to point to Monkey D. Luffy's progress throughout One Piece here, as he's gone from the boy in the barrel to one of the greatest pirates in the world on his journey to become king of the pirates. Luffy has predominantly been Luffy from start to finish. While he does go through growth, we've been witnessing how he rises and how he sticks to his guns, even when it would be easier not to. When writing status stories, I recommend defining the social hierarchy of the world. Make clear where the character fits in and where they aspire to be. With that in mind, external markers can help out big time. Whether it be wealth, titles, or positions, tangible indicators of status can help illustrate the protagonist's journey. Finally, you should show the struggle that exists between personal desires and social expectations. Of course, this doesn't exactly provide direction for the external side of the plot. If you want help with that, I recommend checking out this video I made on the 8 universal story problems.